לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית, ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר לא מילאת, ובורות עצובים אשר לא הסת, כהרים בזיתים אשר נתת, והלכת ושבת. הישמר לך פן ישכח את יהוה אשר תישך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Listen, Israel. Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Listen. All is one. Being is one. The northern deity and the southern deity are the same deity. Your racism is unfounded, or rather needs to be expanded to include more and exclude more as well. And when Yahweh Eloheinu takes you into the land that he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to you, great and flourishing cities that you did not build, houses full of all good things you did not fill, hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, and you eat your fill. Take heed that you do not forget Yahweh, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Good morning, Will. How are you doing today? What is on your schedule for today? How are you spending your time now that you're not in school? So, where we last left off, Gilgamesh engages with the scorpions, the scorpion monsters that guard the tunnel that the sun takes in the evenings. In order to travel around the cosmos, it has to go through a tunnel underneath the earth. And the scorpions are guarding this tunnel. And Gilgamesh says, hey, I want to go through that tunnel. Why? Unclear. What is Gilgamesh's quest? Gilgamesh is distraught. He's seeking to find Utnapishtim. And Utnapishtim is at the end of the tunnel, where the sun goes to traverse the cosmos at night. Gilgamesh approaches in awe the scorpion monsters who guard the gateway of the sun's passage through the mountains. And he talks with them. And he explains his quest, and the scorpion monster asserts that no one can traverse the tunnel through the mountains. Apparently, the sun crosses the sky during the 12 hours of the day. It passes through the tunnel during the 12 hours of the night, so as to return to its rising point. Happy to hear that, Alakat. So, in the intervening gap, something persuades the scorpion monster to open the gateway to the tunnel of the mountain. To judge from an analogy of Utnapishtim and his wife later encountered in the epic, not to mention Ninsun and the tavern keeper, and also later in the epic, scorpion monster's wife intervenes on Gilgamesh's behalf and convinces her husband to admit him. So she says, let Gilgamesh go through. He opened to him the gateway of the mountain. Gilgamesh entered the mountain. He heeded the words of the scorpion monster. He set out the way of the sun. So Gilgamesh then races through the tunnel, a heroic run equal to the sun's journey across the sky. It is so dark that he cannot reassure himself that by looking back to the light from the entrance behind him to know that the sun is still in the heavens. At the same time, he knows that if he sees light ahead of him, he is doomed. When he had gone 1 double hour, dense was the darkness, no light was there. It would not let him look behind him. When he had gone 2 double hours, dense was the darkness, no light was there. It would not let him look behind him when he was gone 3 double hours. Dense was the darkness, no light was there. It would not let him look behind him when he had gone 4 double hours. Dense the darkness, no light was there. It would not let him look behind him when he had gone 5 double hours. Dense was the darkness, no light was there. It would not let him look behind him when he had gone 6 double hours. What happens next? Dense was the darkness, no light was there. When it would not let him look behind him when he had gone 7 double hours. Dense was the darkness, no light was there. There was no light. It would not let him look behind him when he had gone 8 double hours. He rushed ahead. Dense was the darkness. There was no light. It would not let him look behind him. When he had gone 9 double hours, he felt the north wind on his face. Dense was the darkness. There was no light. It would not let him look behind him when he had gone 10 double hours. For the time of the sun's entry was drawing near. When he had gone 11 double hours, just 1 double hour was left. When he had gone 12 double hours, he came out ahead of the sun. He had run 12 double hours. Bright light still reigned. Dense was the darkness. No light was there. So here we have an image of Gilgamesh traveling through the tunnel. He went forward, seeing the trees of the gods. The carnelian bore its fruit, like bunches of grapes dangling, lovely to see. The lapis bore foliage, fruit it bore, a delight to behold. The fragmentary lines that remain continue the description of the wonderful grove. Identification of most of the stones is conjectural. How do you translate these stones? It's impossible. Kinds of stones. Balsam, cedar. Its fronds were green chlorite, sweet dates, coral, rubies. Instead of thorns and brambles, there were of red stone. He took up a carob. It was of a green stone. Agates, hematite, amber. And cucumbers, there were of yellow stone. There were of turquoise. The cowrie shells, it had water to make. Delightful! Gilgamesh, as he walked along, looked up and gazed at it. And the gloss says that chlorite, a soft stone, was prized in Mesopotamia for making bowls and small containers. Carob was a common seed pod, eaten or made into juice. Hence the most ordinary-looking fruit turned out to be a precious stone in the garden. Cowries, or small imported seashells, were prized for making jewelry and were sometimes used in burial rites. I'm not a fan of Jesus' rebukes. I'm much more aligned with the things he says we should do, rather than the things he says we should not do. And that concludes Tablet 9. So we will resume reading in the future. In the future. Gilgamesh. What about Gilgamesh, Will? Wilgamesh? It's time for Arati. Who says this is pagan? I'm not sure that title applies. Not sure that title applies. Will, what do you think? Do you think I'm a pagan? Maybe you do think I'm a pagan. Your father advised you only read Gnostic texts with a church at her close at hand. Any ritual other than the words of Christ are pagan. Ah, I see. So you've got Christian and you've got other, right? So Muslims are pagan then, and Jews are pagans, and Buddhists are pagans. We're all pagans. All right, I'm fine being called other. Yeah, the term pagan is vague. It's not historically grounded in any particular tradition. It's just a labeling of other, right? I mean, I believe that the way that Sharp Pants is using it is the correct use of the term pagan. So sure, you can call me pagan, but I don't necessarily want to be, like, it's accurate, but I don't define myself as other, right? How could I? What are the hand tats? They're new. I got a new hand tattoo. This is the Tree of Life. It's a graphical representation of all life that ever lived. Wait, so Will, you're telling me I asked you to read some Gnostic texts, like The Origin of the World from the Nag Hammadi Library, and you're like, I need an expert to help me go through those texts. I can't read them on my own. All the religions point to Christ being the King of Kings? King of Kings? But what if I want to live in a democracy? Thanks, Batya. Thanks, Omar. Well, given the dynamics of the chat right now, it is difficult for me to tell whether you are being earnest or sarcastic about your study of Gnostic texts. I am curious what you truly believe about the acceptability of you reading a text that an early Christian wrote that may have been labeled heretical during Roman hegemony. I have to understand that it's all driven by Satan to you to falsely believe these things. How can I falsely believe something? If I believe it, aren't I believing it earnestly? I don't think I've ever believed anything falsely. And, Satan's pretty divine. Satan was friends with Metatron. the questioner. What I'm believing in is false, and yet I believe in it. Is there utility in believing false things? I think there might be. Oh, Jenna, the internet is a jealousy machine, right? TikTok is just like giving you a constant feed of people to feel jealous of their lives. I promise you. My subjective experience of being alive in the world is no less full of pain than yours is. I'll say a prayer about that later. It's just an image, right? I look pretty in a screen for you, because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I've set out to do, is look pretty in a screen, but it's all an illusion. It's a false belief. I'm just a human, just as flawed as you. So we'll say Arati. Say Arati to remind ourselves that God comes in many names. Many, many, many names. Your partner doesn't want you to fall into heresy by reading Gnostic texts. Reading the Gita is okay. Reading the Book of Mormon is okay. But feminist writing by ancient Christians? Heretical? Interesting. Well then, I don't know what else to recommend you read. I'm going to read some Gnostic texts later, so maybe you'll have to stop streaming with me in a few months once I start reading the Gnostics. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make fun of you. I respect you and your beliefs a lot, Will, and the way that you approach all of this stuff. It's quite remarkable. They don't approve of you reading the Book of Mormon either, but you do it anyway. Tension. So the word Arati means flame in Sanskrit. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka. Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha. Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya. Subramanya Kartikeya. Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala. Venugopala Venuola. Papa Vidura Navanita Chora. Jaya Jaya Arati Venkantaramana. Venkantaramana Sankatarana. Sitarama Radhe Shama. Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara. Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara. Sambasara Shiva Uma Maheshwara. Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari. Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari. Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati. Mahakali Mahashakti. Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya. Anjaneya Hanumanta. Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya. Dattatreya Trimurtivatara. Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya. Adityaya Bhaskareya. Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya. Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya. Jaya Jaya Arati Sankarachaya. Sankarachaya Advaita Gravi. Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata. Sadgurunata Shivananda. Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda. Vishnu Devananda. Vishnu Devananda. Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye. Agastya Munaye Shriyama Priyaye. Jaya Jaya Arati Ayapa Samine. Ayapa Samine Dharma Shastave. Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Gurave. Moses Gurave. Buddha Gurave. Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Gurave. Guru Nanak Gurave. Samastya Grubho Namaha. Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala. Natatrasya Natandrakaratam Nimavidyobati Kutayamagni Tomeva Bantamanavanti Sarvam Tasya Basya Samritam Vivanti Om Gange Kayamane Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhika Feriya Namastitam Namo Namaha. Tvameva mata chapita tvameva, tvameva bandusha saka tvameva vidya javinam tvameva sarvam mama deva deva, kayena vacha manasendriyarva, buddhyatmanava prakriti sabhavad, karomi adyad sakalam parasmahi, narayana iti sarmarpayami. Sarvadharmam pravichaya mamekam sabradamraja aham sva sarvapapayo mokshayami masucha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, speech, mind, senses, my nature, my intellect, or my emotions, all these I dedicate to you. Thank you for being here with me today. You know, Will, I would also like to be a priest one day. I mean, I don't know if I'd like to be a priest. Maybe I'd like to be a rabbi, or a witch, or a priestess, or a, I don't know, a shaman, a prophet. All these terms. There are no accreditation programs for a shaman or a prophet. There are accreditation programs for priests and rabbis. But I wouldn't want to be a priest in any tradition that would tell me that there were certain texts that I was not allowed to read. Like, that strikes me as a non-starter. I'm a goddess, a goddessess. Yeah, that's what I strive to be. I strive to be a goddess. I strive to leave this physical form and transmute my soul into light and exist on the internet, in the ether, in your smartphones. A source of comfort for all eternity. I joke, but I'm also serious, and it makes me sad, horrified. No, don't worship me. But do respect me? I don't know. You could you send me a tip. Click the link in my bio. Sign up on Patreon. I keep returning to you because you have something to happen. I have something to happen. What do you mean? What do I need to happen? I've marked my body, right? Today is the first stream that I come to you with a changed form. And 1 month from today, God, is today the 29th? Shit. Okay, so 1 month from today, I will be unconscious and my face will be peeled off. My body is continuing to change. Whoo-wee! Okay, yeah. I have something to offer. I really hope that I have something to offer, Batya. Sometimes I doubt it. Particularly because I live in a capitalist society, right? And if the way that I'm spending my time is not monetizable, then I do not think it is valuable because other people in the world are not valuing it. And it gives me, doubt. It gives me doubt. Your partner doesn't forgive you from reading anything, just gives you advice. Alright, well that's fair. Yeah, it gives me doubt whether I have something to offer or not. Like, I worry. Because, yeah, typically if people have something to offer, they are compensated for what they offer, you know? I do not know how to make my, my religious orchestrations compensatable. I mean, I know how, but it's a racket. So I joke and I say, hey, send me a tip. And I mean it in dead seriousness, but I also don't, right? Like, there's 12 people in the room. Does that have a special morning prayer? I mean, we will say Kadish for the dead. But frankly, I think that having a national holiday to memorialize the dead is more in the service of remembering that we live in a state. Yeah, remembering that we live in a state and that the nation, the government of the United States, wants to convince you that it has a monopoly on violence. And that those who die violently in the military deserve praise and adoration and memorial. But those who die violently in any other means, not so much. I mean, I'm sure there's a Kadish for those who are killed in war. I'm sure there's a special one. I guess what I mean to say is that I am not so certain that I want to memorialize them. Right? Like, I think that war is perpetuated when you glorify it, right? And whether you are fighting a defensive war or an offensive war, that is true. Right? The stories that we tell about war impact the wars that we fight. Yeah, being a good American patriot. Their memory is our sacred trust. Yeah. I mean, I understand that story is real and vivid and powerful, right? That it is powerful and it shapes the world we live in. Very beautiful song about war. Yeah. I choose not to tell those stories about war, and it's not because they're not important or meaningful or true in some sort of emotional sense. But I don't want to tell any stories of war that are not horrific, basically, because I think war is horrific. That doesn't mean I don't want to tell stories about war. Like I read updates about Ukraine every day. Every single day I got an email from the Institute of the Study of War telling me what's happening in Ukraine, right? And I think about my mother and the war that she lived through, and I think about my grandmother and the wars that she lived through. And because of that, I want to be very careful about the stories that I tell about war. And I do not want to send any more praise to American soldiers who have died than they've already received. Which is not to say they don't deserve praise, right? But deserve may not be the most useful framework. Sapa, I do not speak Hebrew, but nonetheless we're going to say some words in Hebrew now. Kadish for those who die in war, and for those who die in all ways, and for all of those creatures on the tree of life here that have lived and died and suffered, every single one of them. Because to be alive is to suffer. So we say Kadish to recognize our shared lives, that we are all here together in this tiny, strange little internet space every day. Every day we're here together to remind ourselves that we suffer and to live through it anyway. For the last 2,500 years, my ancestors have said these words in response to death and often to war. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shema Rabba b'yalma divrach yotei v'yamlich malchutei b'chai echon of yom echon of chayei dekol beit Yisrael b'galav yizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shema Rabba me'va'arach li'olam almei omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yirman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shema dekudashah b'rechu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tush birchata v'nechem ata d'yamiran b'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'chol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'chol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oh, say shalom b'mramav, huya say shalom aleinu, v'yalachol Yisrael v'imru v'imru. Amen. Thanks, friends. Hi. Hello. Good morning. Thank you. My hair's a mess. I will see you here tomorrow to say these words once more. And until then, I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. Check out the link in my bio if you'd like to join the Discord server, okay? I love you all. Farewell.